Today, we're going to talk about something your brain does every single day, especially when you're under pressure. It's a response that can feel, well, pretty confusing or frustrating at times, but it's actually a core feature of our biology, and it's all designed for survival. Okay, let's dive right in.
So picture this. Have you ever been in a really tense meeting or maybe a difficult conversation, and all of a sudden your mind just goes completely blank? You know the answer is in there somewhere, but you just can't seem to find it. Or maybe you felt that exact same mental fog during an exam or while giving a presentation. These moments are incredibly common.
Well, there's a name for this experience. It's called narrowing, and really it is what it sounds like. It's a temporary reduction in your available thinking capacity. And it's so important to get this from the start. This is not a sign of weakness or some kind of personal failure. It's a specific, predictable function of the human brain.
So what is actually happening when our capacity narrows like this? Well, it's absolutely essential to understand that this is a natural protective response. It is not a malfunction or a flaw in your thinking. It's your brain doing exactly what it evolved to do.
Think of your brain like it's constantly managing an energy budget. When it detects any kind of stress or threat, or even just a lot of uncertainty, it has to make a critical decision. It reallocates its resources away from complex creative thinking and directs them towards basic protection. It's a survival instinct, hardwired right into our biology.
And this, right here, is the core idea to grasp. Narrowing isn't something you're doing wrong. It's a built-in feature of your nervous system, one that's designed to keep you safe by focusing all of your attention and resources on whatever it perceives to be the most immediate priority. To really understand this, we need to look at how the brain actually shifts its focus. Let's think of it as the brain's survival switch and see how flipping it can fundamentally change the way you think under pressure. Now, this slide illustrates the trade-off perfectly. On one side, you've got the prefrontal cortex. That's the sophisticated part of your brain responsible for planning, organizing language, and seeing different perspectives. Then, on the other side, you have the limbic and survival systems, which are all about fast, automatic, protective responses. When you're stressed, the brain deliberately diverts power away from the prefrontal cortex to supercharge these survival systems. So the crucial point is this. When that survival switch gets flipped, your brain temporarily reduces your access to those advanced functions of the prefrontal cortex. You become more reactive and less reflective. And this is exactly why finding the right words, solving a complex problem, or even just regulating your emotions suddenly becomes so much harder. We can actually map these changes in capacity using a model called the traffic light processing framework. It's a really effective way to visualize how your nervous system's state directly impacts your ability to think. Let's just take a moment here, because this table illustrates the connection brilliantly. When your nervous system is in a regulated or green state, your thinking capacity is wide. You've got full access to all your cognitive resources. But as it gets more activated and moves into an orange state, that capacity begins to narrow. And finally, in a red, overwhelmed state, your capacity becomes severely narrowed because all of your brain's resources are now focused purely on survival. But here's the really hopeful part. This is not a permanent state. Narrowing is always temporary. As soon as your nervous system begins to regulate, as soon as it shifts back from red or orange towards that green state, your access to those higher thinking functions returns, and your cognitive capacity widens once more. Okay, so this leads to the next logical question. What causes our nervous system to shift states in the first place? Why does our capacity narrow? Well, there are two primary triggers. First, it can be a reaction to immediate stress, something happening right here, right now. Your boss asks an unexpected, tricky question, and your brain reacts. But second, and this is just as powerful, it can be a learned prediction. Your brain anticipates risk based on past experiences, maybe like walking into a room where you've had difficult conversations before. It narrows your capacity protectively, even before any actual threat has appeared. So let's bring all of this together by reframing this whole experience. The real key here is to stop seeing those moments of mental blankness or difficulty concentrating as a personal failing, and instead to start seeing them for what they truly are. So, the crucial points to take away are these. Remember that narrowing is simply a temporary reduction of your thinking capacity. It's driven by the brain's instinctive need to reallocate resources for protection. This process reduces access to your prefrontal cortex, and your capacity changes based on your nervous system state, just like in the traffic light framework.
But above all, remember it is a natural and often very helpful survival mechanism. This quote really captures the shift in perspective perfectly. Once you can recognize that your capacity is narrowing, you can stop fighting against a biological process. Instead, you can start asking a totally new question. What can I do to support my nervous system so it feels safe enough to regulate again?
And that leads us to our final thought. Now that you understand the why behind this fundamental brain process, the next step is to explore the how. How might you begin to work with your nervous system to help your thinking capacity widen again, especially when you need it most?